Good morning, guys. I'm Chris, and welcome back to another episode of Rift Amps. Thank you to everyone that answered my question in the last video about this cheeky caller of mine. Well, most of you, I think pretty much 99% of everyone who commented agreed that I did the right thing and I did have a right to charge him some money. So thank you all for that. I really appreciate that. I will clarify that, to be fair, I rarely charge for technical advice over the phone. Always want to help people. It was just in that situation with this guy. I didn't want to say no, I won't help you, but if you wanted my help, I thought he should pay for that. And most of you, nearly all of you, agree. So thank you very much. I really appreciate that. It's nice to get people's thoughts and comments on that, actually. I've had some really nice replies and things. So, again, thank you so much. I really appreciate that. I need to get stuck on with this build. Just had this Louis Electric Columbia Reverb amp dropped in for service. Now, we don't get many of these amplifiers over here in the UK. There was a dealer, Coda Music, who carried these for a couple of years, but no one else seems to have taken on that job. So we just don't see these. I'm sure they're a lot more common in the States where they're made, but over here in the UK, we just don't really see them. I don't know how many were sold, but they're no longer available. And I have had a look on the website. He doesn't ship directly to the UK, but nor has a UK dealer, so I'm not sure how you'd actually get one. But anyway, this one's come in. The owner has purchased this second-hand, and he said he was comparing it alongside some other high-end amp that he's got, and the noise floor in this amplifier he thinks is a bit excessive. So he's brought it in for me to check over and have a look at. So, what is the Louis Electric Columbia Reverb? Well, it's by their own description, it's a Princeton style amplifier, Princeton Reverb style amplifier. We've got volume, treble, a mid control on this one, bass, reverb, and 2-knob tremolo. So over the standard Princeton Reverb circuit, the AA1164, we've got the added mid control, which can be a good thing if you're using it as a pedal platform or similar, but for some people because it's quite lossy, it can take something away from the amplifier. So we'll have to see how this one sounds and how they've implemented it to see if that works well. Anyway, first thing I notice, of course, is the lovely two-tone cabinet. So we've got the rough brown Tolex on top, which, unlike that Tone King, hasn't greened, and we've got the black Tolex below with some lovely, it's either gold or bronze piping splitting the two, and that runs all the way around the back and on this side as well. I think that looks really smart. Now, I was staring at this for a couple of minutes trying to work out why it looks odd. The reason it looks odd is they've done the grill cloth vertically. Normally these gold, this is oxblood cloth with the gold stripes. Normally they're done horizontally. That's the standard Fender style way to do it. But he's decided to do it vertically. I don't know whether that's to make the amplifier appear taller or not. Who knows? But yeah, it's certainly got that thing going on. So how tall is it? Well, a standard Princeton Reverb is 20 inches wide. And this one is, 20 inches wide, and they're normally 16.5 inches tall. And this one is all the way up, just under 19 there. Yeah. So they've added, 2.5 inches onto it. Now, I do a similar style amplifier, a beefed up Princeton Reverb, my PR35, and I only add 1 inch height to it so the dimensions don't look too off, but they've obviously gone even taller. So, each to their own. It's got a nice leather handle on top. Some nice sturdy chassis mounts there. Each side. Standard Fender style dual light. Nice logo plate on top. Interesting that they've done that there rather than off to the side here, where the old Fender logo would be. Interesting design cue. But there we go. And let's spin it around and have a look what we've got in the back. So, first thing, it's got a Jupiter speaker in. Now, Jupiter speakers are made for Jupiter by WGS, Warehouse Guitar Speakers. Most of them are just warehouse speakers in a different frame colour with a different name, but it's the same model. Not always the case. There are some Jupiter specific models. Try and say that again. Jupiter specific models. But overall, they generally sound quite good. I know Milkman uses Jupiter speakers as well. A nice high-end boutique speaker. They always sound great. And I know they do some really good Alnicos as well. So yeah, reverb tank in the bottom. Got the standard Fender style 2-button foot switch. I don't know why you wouldn't update that to a more modern style, and rather than the 2 RCAs go for a single stereo cable, TRS cable, but there you go. Now it's got 2 output sockets. This is for when you're running 6v6s, you've got to run into this socket. But when you're running 6L6s with this amplifier, you can choose to run either or, depending what impedance you choose and how you want the amplifier to respond. It's got a bias controller on the back and a nice warning sticker. But I don't see any CE markings, no Roche, no Wii, none of the actual required labelling for sale in the UK/EU. So we'll have to investigate that further, but it should, if it's sold in this market, be labelled correctly. Anyway, that's the amplifier. So what's it in for? Well, as I said, he's complained that the noise floor is higher than he would expect. So let's power this thing on, all the controls on 0, and let's have a listen. Okay, so the amplifier is now up and running. I've got my second microphone listening, so hopefully this will pick up. It might be too quiet, but we'll see, just in case. And I've got my FFT app on the iPad open, which helps us measure noise floor and things like that. It's not perfectly accurate, but as long as I use it consistently, my own reference points stay the same. So it is a useful tool to have. So the amp is on, as you can see, and all the controls are at 0. So we're just listening to at the moment to the operational noise of the amplifier. We're not injecting any noise into the front end or anything like that. So we're just listening to the amplifier itself. And what we can see is 100 Hertz peak, and there's one at 200 as well on here. Now, it's jumping around because I'm talking, but when I go quiet, you'll see those. Okay, so the 50 Hertz is our mains frequency. 100 Hertz is our rectified noise, hum. And 200 is the harmonic of that. Now, as a rough rule of thumb, and again, this is based on this app and what my experience with it, with all the other amplifiers that I test, is that nothing should be above negative 72 dB, right? So let's have a look at that again and look at those reference points. So both the 100 Hertz is above 72. And our 200 Hertz harmonic is way above 72, around 62, 63, 64 maybe. So I would agree with the customer at this point that yes, the noise floor of this amplifier is higher than usual. Now, for some people, it's not an issue at all. They wouldn't mind that. It's absolutely fine. Wouldn't even consider it to be an issue. But other guitar players are a bit pickier than that, and they say, actually, no, there is quite a bit of hum there. I don't like it. Can we look and see if there's actually an issue underlying? Because you might, depending on what you play, you might find that to be quite intrusive. So he said he's messed around with some valves at the back, but we'll just double check our work or his work and see what we've got. So let's set this as you might have it when you're playing it. So we go treble, middle, bass at 5, volume at 5, reverb on 4, maybe we'll keep the tremolo off for the time being. Let's have a look at what that's done to our noise floor. Yep, so quite a bit of noise there. So I'm just going to go around the back and I'm just going to tap the valves to see if I can hear any excessive noises. Just come around. What I'm going to do is just remove the 4 preamp valve shields. We'll start with V1. Sounds alright to me. V2. Sounds okay to me. V3. Definitely microphonic. V4 is okay. Yeah, I can hear V3 noise coming through the speaker. Output valves. There's 6 V6s in this particular one. And the rectifier valve. Okay, so my first suspect, in fact, if I turn the reverb control up, volume, treble, middle, bass, volume, treble, middle, bass, reverb, and tap it. Okay, so the reverb recovery, if that's what V3 is, if it's a true AA1164 circuit, that should be reverb recovery. Got a microphonic valve there. So let's quickly swap that out and see if that changes our noise floor. Someone's asked, lovely email actually, someone's asked if I could make a recommendation. He's a first time amp builder, so he's putting together all the bits he needs for his build. He's not built a kit before. He's built a couple of pedals, I think, but it's his first amp, and rather than buying a kit, he wants to source all of the components and things himself. So fair play to him. And he's asked, do I have any recommendations for transformers? Now, we have talked about this on the channel before, and my advice is go with a well-known brand from a reputable supplier. And don't worry about it any more than that. Don't worry about that this guy says this transformer does one thing, and this other place says this one's better because it's this, this, and this. If you're a beginner amp builder, all you need to know is that the transformers are the right spec for the amplifier you're building, and that they are well made, and should anything go wrong, the supplier will look after you. Don't start messing around with different transformer styles and bits and pieces, because there's a whole lot more you need to understand about guitar amplifiers first before you get to transformers. Transformers are easily 10th or 12th, 10th, 11th or 12th or so on the list of things that you need to get through before you start worrying about them. So first thing I say is learn to build the amplifier, get it working. Once you've done that, you can start messing around with component values. So stick with the same brand of capacitors and resistors that your build came with. If it was a kit, for example, when it came with orange drops, stick with orange drops and learn what happens when you change the value of a coupling capacitor, for example, and use your ears and decide, changing the value of that upwards does this, and if I go the other way, what does that do? It does that. Okay, so I've learnt that, and then move on. That's the sort of thing you should be messing around with when you're learning about amplifiers and understanding the tonal changes that things make. With your transformers, buy from a good place, buy the known name brands, and make sure they're the right spec. Apart from that, don't get involved. V3 swapped out for a brand new 12AX7, and if we look at our chart now, our 100 Hz hum has now dropped down to 72 decibels, and I'll put the charts up on the screen so you can see exactly what they are. Voiceover Chris here in the future. So our 50 Hz hum before was just below 72 dB and now it's dropped down to negative 78. Our 100 Hz hum was around 68 dB, now it's down to below 72, but our 200 Hz hum is pretty much staying the same. So swapping over V3 has made quite a bit of difference. I would like to try and bring that down. So let's get this thing open and let's have a look inside. I've just set this shot up and I'm just realising how messy and cluttered my workshop is at the moment. So I'm going to have to come in and sort it out over the weekend because we've got a lot on and I need to make some space. And it does look a bit messy, doesn't it? It doesn't help that on that back bench there is all of my engine building stuff for the race car. There's the next engine build there. So yeah, I need to have a sort out. I'm terrible. Right. Anyway, next question I had. This is turning to be more of a Q&A than my Sunday videos usually are. Maybe I should have saved these for next Wednesday's video. But I had a really, really good question about the speakers that are in the Vox, the AC30 CC2X that I've got in for repair. What kind of recommendations I would make for that particular amplifier, because famously, Celestian Blues are 15 watts each. So two of them in parallel give you a 30 watt power handling capability. Now an AC30 in the name's a 30 watt amplifier, but obviously when you're overdriving it and hard, it's producing way more than 30 watts, right? Could easily be doing 50 watts. So can those speakers actually handle it? Well, and what's the general rule for speaker rating versus amplifier rating? The rule of thumb used to be that you needed to double rate your speakers. So if you had a 100 watt amplifier, you needed speakers combined that could handle 200 watts. And that was the rule of thumb for years and years and years. And it's still a good rule of thumb to stick to now. So if you're unsure, especially if it's an unknown amplifier, one you're building, for example, or one that's new to you, something that you bought, always stick with the rule of 2 on that, and it always works. And you can't go wrong with rule of 2. Can you start to eat into that and bring that down? Well, unless you can measure on the test bench the output of the amplifier when it's fully cranked, where do you go? What do you do with it? Now, different amplifiers, some amplifiers when they're fully cranked won't make twice the power. Some of them will only do 1.7, 1.6, 1.3 maybe. So it is difficult, and until you measure the amplifier, you don't really know what you truly need. To make it even more complicated, some power ratings of speakers some of them are conservative and some of them are over-egging it a bit. So I know some speakers out there that are rated for 25 watts can quite happily take 40 watts of continuous power all day long. They are rated less than what they can truly handle. And that might be just for marketing purposes, to keep things vintage correct or whatever. But also there are some speakers out there that, even though I know I won't say which one it is, because I can't quite remember actually. If I do remember, I'll put it on. But it's by an American brand that's rated for 50 watts, but will blow when you put 35 watts through it. So in fact, they're not an American brand anymore, or at least they're not American owned. Don't know if that's a clue or not, but yeah. So it's a difficult one, really. I mean, I know with my amplifiers, of course, the maximum power they can put out, and so I know what sort of speaker I can put in there and how close I can get to that. But it also comes down to sound. A speaker that's being run close to its limit will distort in a certain way versus one that's got a much higher limit and is staying nice and clean, and that might be a beneficial tone to you or not. So there is no simple answer, I'm afraid. and it can be a bit confusing. But my recommendation is, if you're ever unsure, rule of two. So double, your speakers need to be double whatever the amplifier is rated at. But to be honest with you, most of the time, 1.7, 1.8 works, puts you in a good place, and you'll be fine with that. Most people aren't running their amps cranked flat out all the time anyway, so maybe you're okay. Okay, chassis removed from the cabinet. First thing I notice is there's no shielding on the roof of the cabinet, so no Faraday cage there, no hum rejection, no RF rejection. So we're going to have to shield that. I mean, that's pretty poor, to be honest. You should always shield your cabinets. But anyway, here's the chassis. But before we have a good look inside, let's flip it over and look at the transformers. It's raining even harder. Look. I know we say that the Brits love talking about the weather, but it's June tomorrow. Right, so here's the chassis then. Unmarked transformers, as far as I can tell. The power transformer here looks to be kind of a standard 125 P1B size transformer. The output transformer, however, is much larger than standard for one of these, for a Princeton style amplifier. Big beefy core. Stack, nice end bells. Looks pretty nice, actually. Unfortunately, we don't know who made it. The Reverb transformer does have some markings on it. There we go. Interesting that he's... let me just move out. Probably because of the size of this transformer, means he couldn't do his Reverb transformer. They're usually at a 45-degree-ish angle for hum rejection, because you get electromagnetically coupled hums. So I wonder why this, if it was me, and I'm not slagging this amplifier off at all, I'm just pointing things out, okay? I would probably have this transformer, because there's no choke, you see, I'd probably have this transformer slightly this way more, and then I'd optimize the orientation of the Reverb transformer. Try and reduce some noise in the amp, but, that's where we are. Right, so, nice chassis though, really nice chassis. Nice heavy duty things. He's gone for a hardwired mains cable. It's got a strain relief here, and there was a strain relief to the inside of the cabinet, which is the correct way to do it if you're having a captive mains cable. So that's good to see. But, obviously I do my IEC sockets, and I don't really see why you have to do captive cables anymore. IECs are so much better. But there you go. Apart from that, it all looks to be pretty standard, although he has got space for the multi-section can capacitor. Maybe this chassis is used in... I know he's got a model called the Roadrunner, which is more accurately a Princeton style amplifier, rather than this modded version. So maybe it's a shared chassis between the two and he's just blanked that off. But there you go. Right, let's spin it over and let's have a good look inside. Right, in the last 5 minutes it's actually got heavier. Do you think I should start a weather channel just for weather updates at the farm? Because I seem to be doing a lot of them lately. And here we go. So let's get this right. So standard, centralized board layout, and it appears it's the standard AA1164 layout. But as I said, his filter stack, rather than being a can capacitor, is now 4 capacitors, and he's got them running north to south in this chassis. Quite interesting. All F&T's here. His bias cap, however, is an IC, and it's way over voltage rating there. Probably only need a 100 volt cap there. But there you go. Got a couple of grounds at transformer bolts, which used to be considered acceptable, but as things have moved on, we try and do things differently now. It looks like he's tried to copy the original grounding scheme. Rather than using a brass plate, he's got these individual points here. Most people now will have all the audio grounds going up to the input jacks and keeping those separate from the power grounds, but you know, it's still an acceptable way to do it. It's just people have developed these things over time. So I don't know when this amplifier was built. Maybe they're done differently now, but I can only observe what's in front of me. So let's look for some positives then. Well, good news. There's quite a few. Nearly every single grid has got its own grid stopper. So he's got one for V2, V1B. The Reverb driver's got a grid stopper, excellent for stopping blocking distortion. The third gain stage has got one, and the phase inverter as well. So this is all sign of somebody who actually knows what they're doing when it comes to circuit design, which is good news. Nice quality components in here. Hotness and good stuff going on. Alpha pots, which I don't mind at all. Some people don't like them, some people do. For me, it's entirely circuit dependent. So on some models, my version of a Princeton Reverb, my PR range, I use the CTS dimple back pots. In my Tweed amps, I use Bournes because I prefer the taper of those. And in the Ainsley Lister Signature, we do actually use alphas. So it's not about whether it's a high quality pot or not. It's just about how that pot works in that application. So clearly the designer here likes the alpha pots in them, and that's what he's decided to use. Okay. Tremolo caps. I did notice that the tremolo in this is quite fast. And we'll have a look at the values to see what he's used. So we've got the standard Fender values of a 22 nanofarad, 10 and 10, which means the tremolo, the slowest speed is still quite fast, and the fastest speed is very fast, almost like a scattergun effect. One thing you can do is swap the two 10s out for 22s, and then this resistor here is usually 1 meg. You drop it down to 270k. It means you get a nice slow tremolo speed at the lowest setting that's still deep and throbby, and it also means you can actually bias the output valves ever so slightly hotter just to try and increase the output. So yeah, apart from that, it all looks pretty nice. Some nice Mallory caps. Do you know what, I haven't seen yellow Mallory caps in a long time now. I mean, they swapped over to whites quite a long time ago, so to see the yellows is quite rare now. So that's interesting. You can see it's a double layer board, so he's got the standard board here and he's got the insulator board below. I'm not sure why you wouldn't use standoffs, but again, it's the way he's decided to do it. Belton sockets throughout. I like the Beltons for the preamps, but I do prefer the ceramics for the octals, just for the heat rejection. But there you go. Overall, though, for the cost of this amplifier, which I think today is $2,500 US, I don't know what it'd be landed in the UK. It's probably about right. Yes, if you were extremely picky and you wanted to go through it, you could fault find any amplifier. But overall, quite happy with this. I see nothing that stands out, like as a red flag. Overall, it's quite a nice amplifier. Pretty cool, right? So the only thing that I did notice, he's got the bias pot on the back there, which he's got running through up to a standard. So he's not using a small bias board. He's got some tag strip here with his bits and pieces on. Got a dedicated bias tap from the transformer. Bias adjust on the back, and then up to his intensity pot, as they usually are. So, yeah, pretty nice. Well, Bill, I don't see anything revolutionary inside, but do you know what? Often you, it's the standard stuff done well sounds better than something that's tweaked. So I would, yeah, it's all good to be honest. Yeah, no qualms, no complaints here. We're just going to try and quieten the noise floor down. So let's get this thing on the test bench, have a look at the output sine wave, measure its output, and see whereabouts we are. Okay, she's on the test bench. She's been running for about 15 minutes now, so she's up to temperature. It's installed with 6 V6s, and we're running in the 6V6 8K tap, which is how the manufacturer wants these to be run. I'm injecting my standard 150 millivolt 1 kilohertz sine wave into the front end. Mid control on full, but treble and bass on 0. Reverb off, tremolos on 0, and I've used the jump lead to defeat the tremolo to switch that off. I've just advanced the control up. Here's our output sine wave. You can see the top half squares off way before the bottom half. So we'll back it just to the point where it's still round. And hopefully we can get a reading. 12.6 volts RMS into 8 ohms, which on our chart, 8 ohms, 12.5 is 19.5 watts. So yeah, this one thing's performing great, isn't it? I wonder if it's actually biased slightly too hot, and maybe that's the reason why the noise floor is slightly higher. So we'll have to see, but I'm going to leave this running for about an hour. At rated output, we've got 97.5 watts of current power consumption. God, tell it's a Friday, coming out the wall, which is about right, actually. It's quite nice. Anyway, let's turn the tremolo on, actually. So and I increase the intensity. Now that's its minimum speed. Dun, 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 dun. It's quite fast, and if I go to the maximum speed, it's really fast. In fact, the oscilloscope is struggling to keep up. So my recommendation to him would be to slow this tremolo down, but he said doesn't want that to happen, so wants me to leave that stock. But we'll leave this thing running and see if we can come up with a plan to make this thing a bit quieter. Well, that's it then, guys. Thank you so much for watching once again. Can I just say, I'm really enjoying making these videos at the moment. Lots of you tune in, lots of you comment. It does feel like we've got a nice little community going now. You lot obviously seem to like the videos. Got quite a few people that have signed up to support the channel. You click the join button below if you want to do that and help me out. Subscribers are going through the roof. Thumbs are going through the roof. Comments are going through the roof. So we're just having a great time at the moment. I've got lots of stuff going on in the workshop that I'm loving showing you. So thank you so much to everyone that tunes in. If you haven't already, please subscribe, thumbs up, comments down below, join the channel if you want to, etc, etc, etc. I think Josh is coming on Wednesday to collect the 2 blonde amps, the basement and the reverb unit, because they're both done now. And fingers crossed, hopefully he's got this new thing that he's going to show us. So I'm really looking forward to that. So if he does, we will show you on Wednesday as well. Thank you very much for watching. I'll catch you at the next one.